by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
I've been there.
I have a dream.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And we're back. George, you're vertical.
Well, hold on. Sorry. I apologize. I wanted to change my background, but I didn't get a chance to. So
You're a little scratchy there, George.
Oh, I'm scratchy. Oh, I guess I got bad. Is it bad bandwidth or is it good now?
It's better now. It's better now.
Okay.
So
great.
How you doing? How you doing, George?
Great. I wanted to have the background of Melania Strikes Back. I wanted to have the background where she's in the motorcade, she's in the limo, she's in the JFK limo, and
Yeah.
instead of a docile Jackie Kennedy, you know, waiting for John F. Kennedy to get shot in the head, you've
Right.
got a very put together secret agent girl from Eastern Ukraine, or from Eastern Slovenia, who is named Melania Trump, who's got the sniper rifle and she's ready to defend her husband at all costs. And it's kind of like the image I want to evoke today, because that's what Melania came out swinging at these investigations, and how slow-footed these investigations are into the assassination of Trump.
Yeah, well, that slow-footed is not is an understatement there.
Glacial pace may be a better way to just.
Yeah, I'm looking for the picture that I made, and I think I know where it is. I know how to find it. Wait, here we go. This is professional show business, folks. Slides. Yeah, all right. I'll show that in a second. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll play a video while I'm looking for the picture. Here we go.
And I have my Substack too, has some pictures too. If you...
All right.
His life was a horrible, distressing experience. Now, the silence around it feels heavy. I can't help but wonder, why didn't law enforcement officials arrest the shooter before the speech? There is definitely more to this story, and we need to uncover the truth.
Yes, we do. So there's the picture, George. There's the show card for
you. Gosh darn you. You outdid me, Peter. You took my idea and improved on it.
I did take your idea. And
but it's a beautiful upgrade to what I did. It's really amazingly beautiful. Good job.
You just have to wrestle with the AI. You know what I mean? It's like,
It is like wrestling. People don't realize it takes 5 or 6 tries to do anything we do. But it's a lot easier than hiring an art, director and several artists and waiting weeks to get a result.
Sure. The thing is that I was thinking about this yesterday because I want to train my wife how to do what I'm doing, And I think the biggest challenge of it is that the way that AI is programmed, they call it a chat, right? And back in the day, you and I used to do this thing called the command line interface, right? And it's really just a command line interface that's been branded as a chat. That is, you can use personal pronouns with it and it will understand the personal pronouns with it. But when it doesn't do what you say, you have a tendency to get emotional with it like it's a person in a way that I don't think that we ever got emotional when we were putting command lines into BASIC. You know what I mean?
I remember that very well. BASIC was an interpreter, so you would key something into BASIC, and then you'd get a result. You'd say print this or select that or draw a circle, and you'd either see it do it or not, and you wouldn't get a set. But when you really give a really long description of exactly what you want and it comes out totally different, you get angry because you feel like you wrote something and it got deleted off your computer because it didn't do what you wanted.
Well, here's what I've noticed. There's well, we'll see if George comes back. Yeah, let's add a stage. Here's what I've noticed. These are a couple of pro tips for people on writing prompts. First of all, it seems to work better if you put things in like bulleted lists that are hierarchical, because then it attributes attributes to whatever the things are that you're making main things in the list. And the second thing is that it has a tendency to forget things that you put at the beginning of the prompt. Okay? So there's no rule that says that you can't put the same thing in there more than one time. So I will continually take things from the top of the prompt and then add them to the bottom of the prompt without losing the thing on the top of the prompt. So those two things wind up becoming a valuable skill in trying to kind of detail this in. I couldn't get it to make her sit in the back seat. I tried 50 different ways to get her to sit in the back seat. Can you show everybody my version in George Webb Substack? In Substack? Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. In fact, I think I have it right here. I have it in a tab.
The thing that inspired Peter to do the pillbox hat with the chiffon pink dress of Jackie Kennedy.
Yeah, it didn't. I was having problems getting it to do pillbox hat. Like it didn't really know what to do with that. Okay, here we go. Melania Strikes Back. All right, and I'll make this a little bigger. So while we're showing this, George, you want to talk about what Melania Strikes Back is?
Sure. She came out and said, "Hey, you guys aren't going fast enough." There's the video you just played. Here's the article from your friend Gary. No, it's not Daily Wire and Gary Hoff. That's Epic Times. So this was.
This is the Times of This is the Times of London. This is the oligarch paper of record, which I think is owned by Rupert Murdoch now, right?
Right. Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
But she's basically saying, hey, you guys should have arrested. If you saw this guy looking suspicious, you should have arrested him before the election. And now I'm taking things into my own hands. And the first lady now has become
you should have you arrested who? Because he's dead. Crooks. Oh, yeah.
Before the shooting. Yeah. So this is the latest news, which is the guy who's in charge of what they call protective services.
Yeah.
Secret Service was fired. But again, Secret Service wasn't covering the roof. This Deep Well Services that hired it's a Rockefeller oil and gas company that hired the Butler sniper team through this guy named Mirko. And they're the ones that were told to leave, right? So this is me going to Slovenia, to Melania's hometown. I talk about Melania as somebody potentially unlike. Well, you can play that if you want.
Okay, let me play it because then I can close the window. Okay.
I don't have audio though, Peter.
The audio's not working.
Well,
Where?
I'll just say the audio, which
Which
is
audio? Oh,
um,
the audio's not working on the
it's her
video.
hometown. It's her hometown, and I'm saying, Melania was at every NATO capital for more than a decade. She learned 5 different languages. So, is she trying to root out these super fascist elements in NATO? I was talking about Croatia, which is right across the border, being used as the number one fascist element through the Catholic Church, again, through like a Gladio program. And I'm talking about it, and I think it's Vince Ferragamo. I can't remember his name. But
Leo Zagami?
Thank you. Leo Zagami, who was saying, hey, this Pietro Benassi is this Jesuit spy. He's a super arch Nazi, and I'm saying, hey, was she moving around these circles as a model?
Is he in Leo? Are the Benassis in Leo Zagami's books? Because he's got like 11 books.
Yeah, he's saying he's this Jesuit spy, and he's been, as this position with the Pope, this annuncio to the Pope, that these are just spy positions that are being used by the CIA through the Catholic Church in Italy. And so I was just asking the question, how does a model learn 5 languages so fluently, and she's going in and amongst all the top leaders before she met Trump?
Right.
Did she have an intelligence background? Because she's not reacting like Jackie. Jackie, kind of clutched her purse and
and ran off and married another oligarch.
Yeah, and then there's really weird B12 conversations between Lyndon Johnson and Jackie, and weird conversations. I don't even want to get into.
What do you mean B12?
Well, vitamin B12, which is the solution to pernicious anemia. Your body can't make I can't remember where along the red blood cell making pathway, but because you don't have B12, you can't process folates or something along that line that your body needs to fixate iron in blood.
Okay.
So if you want to make somebody anemic, right, and make them look sickly and anemic, you could infect them with pernicious anemia. And you could do this with a bacteria called Heliobacter pylori. It's the same thing that causes stomach ulcers. And the questioning here is why is Lyndon Johnson's doctor giving B12 shots to Jackie Kennedy? That's freaky weird to me. And when you hear
it sounds like Hitler getting his shots.
Yeah, it's almost
Hitler used to get vitamin shots all the time, right?
Yeah. It's this freaky conversation, if you ever pull it up, between Jackie Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson after the assassination.
Wait, there's a video of it?
There's a video of it, and there's a audio of the conversation. And the only reason I say this is Kennedy was also getting B12. And he may have also been being poisoned by Johnson with pernicious anemia. And it was the doctor of Johnson that was giving these shots out. So I think if you look up B12 conversation, creepy conversation between Jackie Kennedy and Johnson. But my big point here is Jackie Kennedy was kind of a shrinking violet as far as the assassination, not really fighting back through the Warren Commission like her brother Robert later on. But this is different. Melania is coming out swinging here. She may commission an independent investigative body outside of the Congress and outside of the FBI.
Is this it? Okay, now yeah. I need to make sure that the audio is working, because the way that I normally that might have just been a Substack problem. So let's in the chat, tell me if you hear the audio. No audio? All right,
no audio. No audio.
All right. So I don't know what the issue is with that. I could download
You shared the audio, I think, right, from the video source.
I did, and like I could restart Brave or something, but that would make the
Probably
show
have to-
end.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well,
All right.
anyway, it goes something like this. Why did you leave Washington without me? I almost had you arrested. That kind of a lovey-dovey type talk. And then breathy Jackie says, "Oh, I can't wait. I'm so sorry. I hope you got my note that I left without you. And I'll come back and get a B12 shot from your doctor any day now." It's that syrupy. And it's kind of one of those things that says, was Johnson and Bobby Baker and the gang giving the Kennedys pernicious anemia? Why are they needing Bill B12 shots?
I'm thinking giving them pernicious cocaine or pernicious.
That could be too.
Okay.
But I know B12 could be for a lot of different things. But it's usually,
I don't believe anybody's getting a B12 shot. I'm sorry.
Well, she said, God strike me dead if she doesn't say a B12 shot from your doctor, President Johnson.
Right.
And she calls it Mr. President over the phone.
Well, I have downloaded it on my desktop, and I just need to. I didn't give it the right extension, so I'm just trying to load it up here. Okay, MP4. This is obviously yes, I'm sure. Here we go. Present video, and let's see if we can get the audio now.
Fast as you could. You got any sunshine down there?
Oh, it's wonderful.
How are you? I'm harassed to death, and I don't know whether I'm going to survive or not, but I may go to the weekend anyway.
Well, everything's just wonderful. Your speech was beyond belief.
Well, thank you, dear. I wanted to, I just heard that you were going to probably go...
Did Lady Bird steal Jackie's outfit here? This is...
That was very stylish back then, if you remember.
Memorial to the president, Magna Carta at Runnymede, and I wanted to suggest that if you cared to, that you and your party take one of the 707s, and I thought I might ask Bobby and Teddy if they wanted to go to represent me along with the Secretary of State, Chief Justice, who are already going to be over there. And you might want to take any other members of the family or anybody in the party you wanted to.
I think this is a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah, if you search on B12 at Jackie and President
yeah, you know what? Again, I think the B12 thing is a throw. I mean, when I hear that.
You mean cocaine or something?
I think, yeah. I don't think people are they're really talking to each other about B12 shots. I don't believe that.
I got you. It's code.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Here, Not Now says B12 shots are kind of famous. Wasn't there a doctor called Dr. Feelgood who was frequently giving Jack and Jackie shots? Yeah, I think there was.
Yeah, so, I can't remember his name, but it was Johnson's doctor as well. And again, this is kind of one of those things where, like Michael Jackson, it allows you to kind of do a little bit of mind control, create fear, create uncertainty, create doubt. I don't know. It just seems like an unusual relationship between a vice president and a president.
Well, I think we've gone way down a rabbit hole here, George, with the B12
Yeah,
shot.
I think we might have.
I think I want to pull it back.
My point was that this is not a shrinking violet first lady. This first lady is, sunflower ablaze in the noonday sun, fighting back.
And we're talking about Melania now. Yeah,
talking about Melania not being a Jackie Kennedy.
And well, it's interesting too because I was noticing when I was changing the thumbnail today that last week I said if Trump doesn't care, why should I? And it seemed to me that. His interview with Elon Musk seemed to be a complete school play. They talked about it. He talked about the blood was everywhere and, that kind of like histrionic nonsense. And then that was it. And then they just talked about other stuff. It wasn't like, well, who do you think was trying to kill you? Because do you really think that it's this kid? that was trying to kill you, and because he sure had an easy time getting through and setting up to be able to take some shots at you if he was actually the one who did take the shots. None of that conversation is going on, right? And I just think about Elon Musk. I was listening, Matt Ehret has a 9-part Substack on Nikola Tesla that I've been listening to on the elliptical when I'm at the gym. I hit the gym every morning. And, it seems like Nikola Tesla was just kind of a limited hangout, too. He was a cutout, kind of like Isaac Newton. And that, I look at Elon. Elon names his company Tesla. Tesla seems to be a cutout. Apple named their first handheld device the Newton. There's all of this kind of like weird stuff going on. And in the meantime, you're the only person who's running around the country asking hard questions. There's lots of people who are sitting in their offices doing like Peak Prosperity, doing all kinds of great analysis. And Richard Grove, of course, you and I were talking about earlier, is collecting all of these things together on his Sunday podcast, Grand Theft World. He's putting those things all together. But George Webb seems to be the only person out there who's holding up a skein of string and saying, "Hey, let's pull the string here."
Well, you're right, and maybe Melania heard us from last week, Peter, and said, "Hey, I better tell Peter Duke that I'm interested in who tried to kill my husband and shot my husband." And I think you're right. I mean, I spoke to 2 more sheriffs today, and the guy who runs the constitutional sheriffs in the United States, the CEO of that company. And specifically to ask them, the sheriff in Beaver County, Butler County, the sheriff in Beaver County, Tony Guy, told me that he's not in charge of his own SWAT team.
Right.
He's not in charge of his own SWAT team. So I asked these 2 sheriffs. I'm going to meet again with them tonight with some reporters here in Meridian, Idaho. We're asking the question, are you sure that you don't run your own SWAT team? No. Tony Guy says these other guys that run it. Well,
yeah, I think you have a video about that, right?
Yeah. Well, the main part about this is that it's a company called Deep Well Services that commissions the SWAT team.
Deep Well. That's a deep well, George.
They're an oil and gas exploration services company.
Of course they are. They're
Rockefeller.
Right, of course. Yeah, of course.
For fracking oil and gas in
it's either the Rockefellers or BP, right?
Yes, but this is the people who commission the group. And remember, if they don't work for Tony Guy, he's not responsible if they leave their post. Right? That's what Tony Guy told me. I'm not responsible that those 6 guys left their post when Trump took the stage. They're allowed to collect their check until Trump takes the stage. You make big money as a sniper, not like mall top money, right?
Right.
And then they don't work for Tony Guy at Beaver County. So when Trump takes the stage, that's when Rockefeller says, "You guys are off. You got take the day off." And that's when the shooting happened, 6:05 to 6:11. Isn't that interesting that all the Rockefeller snipers all leave? Well, 3 of them leave at 4:20.
So the question is, who told them to leave, right?
Well, Dimmick Rockefeller, we've looked at these families, these NATO families and these Rockefeller families, these Dimmick Rockefellers. There's like 4 of them. One of them owns the glass company where Crooks takes the shots. So it just gets so deep. But my point is that I have a sheriff, Tony Guy, whose deputies all left their post when Trump takes the stage, and he says he's not responsible because they don't report to him.
Mm-hmm.
And they report to the DOJ, meaning that all of these SWAT teams for shooting people, at various state capitals and so forth, for slaughter pen operations, they don't work for any of the sheriffs. They've taken that responsibility away from the sheriffs, and they've given it to a central federal authority, the DOJ. So the DOJ can go around and create January 6s and slaughter pens at state capitals or the nation's capital or any government building. All with, Garland. Eric Garland is the head of all that. The Attorney General. It's amazing. I just don't think people know that story.
Can you imagine? It's funny because they were trying to get him to be the a Supreme Court justice, right? Merrick Garland. And then he didn't make it. And I guess they decided that they were going to, Biden decided that he was going to punish everyone for not allowing Merrick Garland in there by, I think it was Mitch McConnell who kind of sandbagged that whole thing, right? And then we got the two equity and inclusion hires for the Supreme Court. Joe Biden put in the EIC hires. In any case.
Well, it's an amazing story, but you're right. I do seem to be the only guy who's still working on this. I am interviewing people and picking at the various inconsistencies, the improbabilities, the things that don't make any sense. You know, how do you arrest the guy who's promised $1 million to kill Trump the day before the Trump assassination? Then the Trump assassination happens. We find out the kid has 3 overseas encrypted accounts in 3 different countries, 3 overseas accounts with hundreds of thousands of dollars in 3 different countries. And we don't associate those two things. Well, finally, we've got somebody in Congress to ask that question, which is this Tim Waltz, not Walz like the vice presidential running mate, but Waltz, W-A-L-T-Z, and I believe he's out of Florida. So at least we have them, saying the words. They haven't done any.
Was any of that stuff Bitcoin?
It's crypto. We think it's actually in the crypto account called Sonata or
Solana
or Sonesta. What I can't remember, but Uric had a big account in crypto called Sonesta, I think.
Right,
Sonesta
because I think
Sonata.
I think Bitcoin you can the ledger is open. So if somebody got money from their wallet, you can go look at all the other transactions that went in and out of that wallet, and then track them back too. That's the whole thing about crypto. People think that it's anonymous. It's the most unanonymous thing that you can imagine. The only thing anonymous is cash. And with that, George is back again. George, where'd you go?
I think every once in a while, NSA decides to let us have it. So I'm writing another one about NSA and Danny Castellero. I started another blog.
Yeah, what are you? Talk about that. So you watched the Netflix series, and you were nonplussed by it, I hear.
Well, yeah, it's just so much fiction. It's deliberately bad, deliberately confusing, deliberately making you want to tear your hair out, deliberately making you want to jump off a bridge, deliberately making you want to go run screaming into the night. Right? You're more confused after you see these 4 episodes than when you started. Right? And what I want to do is immediately not keep anybody in suspense, tell them the answer to the test right off the bat. It's at GWebb, GWEBB at Substack.com. So it's not GeorgeWebb.substack.com like my current events. This goes back to Substack. This goes back to 1991.
So I think that you can make separate sections in your Substack. Is there a reason why you did a separate Substack for that?
Because there's just some people that just get frustrated if I mix history with current events.
Okay.
So I decided to do one.
All right. Well, let's see if we can get George back. And I did find his website. Present. Here we go. And here's George's website. His new website. And I'll hit archive because I like to hit the archive button. Well, has he fixed the layout yet? This is kind of like the default layout. George Webb's Indio, Part 4. I think George might have disappeared on me. Okay, so let's see what Part 1 is. Indio. I guess this is George's critique of the Netflix American conspiracy. And this is what the oligarchs do, is that they create these alternate versions of reality. The World War II was started because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and World War I was started, or America came into World War I because the Lusitania was sunk. And they like to take things that are pointing a little bit too close to home and then spin them a little bit, change them so that people don't actually figure out what's going on, because researchers, like the kind of people who watch this channel, actually go and read things and actually dig and find out what really happened. And they don't want people to do that. They want people to sit on their couch and eat some popcorn and do it, 4 nights in a row. And then when they're done, feel like they know the Danny Casolaro story. They know everything about it because they watched the Netflix series. And let me see if George is popping back in here. George.
Hey, Peter.
I was showing your website.
Well, thank you very much. People are not going to like the way this turns out. They're going to be angry at me. There's going to be gnashing of teeth. They're not going to like the answers they get. It's not the wacky conspiracy, the red conspiracy yarn by the truckload with thousands of agencies that this software does. It's actually fake. The software does very limited list processing for prosecutors. This promise software that the Danny Casolaro story is built around. It's a very simple story about Cheney, Rumsfeld, and Kissinger using chemical weapons and biological weapons in Iraq in 1991. This is when Casolaro was killed. And they use this software called Promise to hide the real software that's doing the dealing. And the real software is called Systematics. And that software is being run by Robert Maxwell. And the Promise software is how they lure Danny Casolaro away from the anthrax story, away from the Gulf War syndrome story. And it's a tale of how people will go to lengths to fool reporters. And unfortunately, the whole documentary is just a tangle that has no conclusion whatsoever. Like I said, it leaves you more confused than when you started.
Yeah, and it is interesting because having worked in journalism for 4 years when I was working with Chuck Johnson, there is this hunger among journalists to get a scoop, to have a story that nobody else has. And when things get dropped in their lap, they kind of salivate. And I think about the Anthony Sutton story. Anthony Sutton was a researcher at the Hoover Institute. And I think it was Charlotte Iserbyt that had a bunch of documents because Charlotte Iserbyt's father was actually a member of Skull and Bones. And when he passed away, she had all of this documentation, and she had asked her father whether or not it was okay for her to do something with it. And he said yes. And so Anthony Sutton, but Anthony Sutton was not a journalist. So instead of chomping at the bit and figuring, out how he could be the first one in the world to get this story out, he spent a long time, dissecting it and trying to figure it out. But journalists, they live and die by, by the headline, by the number of papers that they're selling. And so when you bring them something that's a big scoop, it's kind of like a big worm on a hook. They can't say no to a lot of stuff.
And the company that really was the company doing all this stuff, Iran-Contra, the company that really was doing, the various machinations with chemical and biological weapons with several dictators, was called Systematics at Jackson Stevens out of Little Rock, Arkansas. And I worked quite a bit with Dan Hopsiker in Venice, California, who had reported on it. We went over to the Jackson Stevens law office in Venice. He elaborated in detail.
Not Venice, California, Venice, Florida, right?
Florida. Did I say California? I'm sorry. Venice, Florida. Yeah. This is where the hijackers trained.
Right.
All that. All of these were mass formation psychosis, psychological operations done by Jackson Stevens. Originally, the 6 hijackers were going to fly in formation. They did fly in formation in Venice, Florida, at that Army base that I've been many times, to do an anthrax attack. And they couldn't decide what city in America to do the anthrax attack, flying in formation like the Red Baron. And the problem they had was the sprayers, like the bug sprayers that the crop dusters use. It would, the anthrax would come out and it wouldn't disseminate. It wouldn't disperse properly. It would come out in a stream like you see when you have these clouds coming off a car.
You mean like chemtrails?
Yeah, like chemtrails. And the anthrax would glue together. It would gloop together, and that it won't affect your ACE2 receptor in your lungs if it gloms together. So you need a dispersal agent. So this is where they came up with the idea of using glass, silicon dioxide, very finely ground. And this is the story of them using, again, glass. American Glass Research. Was American Glass Research involved as a dispersal agent? But this is the story that Dick Cheney uses to condemn Saddam Hussein. This is the story that McCain goes on Johnny Carson and says they've weaponized anthrax. Saddam Hussein's weaponized anthrax. This is the story that Mike Pence tells in the Congress that he's been attacked by anthrax, along with Daschle and the other folks in Congress. So all these people involved in this anthrax hoax, they're the same people now that are saying that Trump should not be president. They're all Cheney's minions and despicable me's.
That's interesting. But that's one of the things that I've learned from watching you over the years is that the cast of characters isn't really as big as we think it is. And
they all fit around a table. They all fit around one table at Langley.
And it's round. It's a round table.
It's a round table. I actually know a guy that built the one in for Camp David. Built the long table in Camp David. It's actually kind of like two big triangles with the ends cut off of the triangle. I don't know what that shape's called, but yeah, these tables, you could fit all the conspirators around one table. It's not a big group of people at all, and it's the same people every time. That's the beautiful part of all this.
Yeah, indeed. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, right? Is that the cliche?
Yeah, that's Mark Twain. Sure does rhyme.
Anyway, so what else? You were talking about Richard Grove earlier. I was interviewed on Saturday by Richard Grove. I don't know when the video is going to come out. I sent them an email to find out, but that was we had a great 20-minute conversation for his autonomy program, and I was in good company. I was among Jay Dyer and James Corbett and some other luminaries. So I felt honored and pleased to be there. So I will try to figure out a way to tell people how they can see that video, because I don't know yet.
Well, I think that's an extremely important group. If Melania does commission a sort of a Warren Commission of independent journalists, by the way, John F. Kennedy Jr. wanted to do this for looking into his father's death, and Wayne Madsen, one of the friends that investigative journalists I had, along with others, 10 other investigative journalists, were to commission John F. Kennedy Jr. wanted with George magazine. That's what he wanted it to be, is to investigate his father's death. Now that's 96. That's about 30 years later. So this is what Melania is doing, but she's doing it 30 to 60 days later.
Right. Well, small plane crashes, for people who are getting too close to the center of something. What was the plane crash yesterday that we were talking about? There was Larry McDonald, famously, who read "None Dare Call It Conspiracy" into the congressional record. On the Duke Report, my latest Substack is on a letter called the House Letter. Here, I'll pull it up. Edward Mandell House. You know that name, George?
The handler of Woodrow Wilson.
The handler of Woodrow Wilson. And let me see if I can pull this up.
Well, the reason I mentioned that Richard Grove group is I want all you guys on the Presidential Commission.
Right.
I want you, and I would love to have James Corbett and Jay Dyer and all the gang on the Presidential Commission. And hopefully we'll get 10 million from Russia.
Right, and you can do the shoe leather. You could do a meeting with those guys on Zoom once a day, and then then they can send George out, and George will do the shoe leather part. Yeah. Edward Mandell House. So George, somebody who follows the show sent me a link to this thing called the Colonel House. It's called the Colonel E.M. House Letter. Have you ever heard of that? I had never heard of it.
This is the thing that implicates Germany in some kind of plot, right?
No, it implicates Great Britain. Okay, and what's interesting about it is that I read the congressional record. All of the documents are linked here in the story. But I read the letter. I went and I read the congressional record. I also read the back and forth between Torkelson, who's the guy, and Torkelson presents this stuff to Congress, and boom, they pull a congresswoman out. He was like the first Republican who had won this district in a long time, and the district was held by a woman who had been in Congress for decades, and they pulled her out of retirement after Torkelson started asking the wrong questions, and he got primaried and then taken out in one term. But when he was trying to present this letter, he's trying to read the letter it reads like a British Secret Service report. And in 1919, when it was being read, it sounded incredibly conspiratorial. But now that we have books, we have Tragedy and Hope, we have The Anglo-American Establishment, we have all of the books by Anthony Sutton, we have the books by Doherty, Hidden History of World War I and Prolonging the Agony. All of the facts that actually happened in history map to this letter, and this letter was written in 1919, and so you have to wonder whether or not it actually was written by Edward Mandell House. I do.
I wonder if we have any thing of him reading an audio, and then we could do an 11 labs of him reading this letter like you did with Truman.
Well, it's interesting. So and what's super interesting about the back and forth between Torkelson and Thompson in the congressional record is this guy Thompson kept saying, can you verify the authorship of this letter? Because it's called the Colonel House letter. And Torkelson kept saying, no, I can't verify who wrote it. And he said, well, I think that you'll be doing a disservice to an honorable gentleman if you put this in the congressional record. And Torkelson is saying, I don't care who wrote it. Just read it. Okay, just read what it says, and then we can figure out who wrote it later, which was exactly my attitude when I created Stealth Power and the Illusion of Democracy. It's like, you can, okay, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion are a forgery. Okay, we don't know if they were done by Elders of Zion, whatever those are. We don't know if they were done by the Russian Secret Service. My theory is that they were leaked to the Russian Secret Service by the British, some British counterintelligence people. But if you don't read them and go through all of the different protocols that they call them, then you don't actually have any kind of historical context for looking at them. And I think that the historical context is important, and not unlike the Colonel E.M. House letter, there's a lot of context in this that maps to a lot of things that got written decades later about things that really happened.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on the publish first. I mean, like for instance, the encrypted messages, the 700 messages from crooks. If you just publish the creation dates of the accounts and the amounts, and you publish the creation dates of the encrypted accounts, the chat accounts, and you publish the to and from IP addresses of all of his messages, we don't need to know who they're to. Just put it out so we know when he was talking to who about what, and this is the same idea. It's just publish it, and then we'll assign authorship later.
Right, exactly. So I made this little graphic here because I was going through this list of, and I wish I had seen this name before I published this yesterday, George, but look who's a Rhodes Scholar, Michael Callahan. Where's that name? Where have we heard that name before?
Bioweapons Are Us, 10 years in Wuhan.
Right.
By the way, can I just add the fact that if you're trying to get anthrax aerosolized, you've got a clumping problem on 9/11, and that's why you decided to do the planes into the building instead of the crop dusters, which was a last-minute change, right? All of the coronavirus spike was the idea of adding that to anthrax to give it ability to be aerosolized. That's what anthrax doesn't have. It's got everything else you want in a bioweapon, but it doesn't have aerosolization. And they were working on anthrax right after 9/11 at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, same place where near where Trump gets shot, right? And this is what a tool, we call her the terrible tool of the deep state, was working on. So I'm just saying it's no surprise that Michael Callahan is in Wuhan 10 years working on the spike, because they're working on aerosolizing anthrax. At the end of this, not now, but 10 years from now, we're going to find out that Michael Callahan is working on aerosolizing anthrax.
Indeed. So I put this little graphic together, and there's a lot of names here as I was going through the list that are Lena Wen. We all know Lena Wen from CNN, doing all kinds of C-19 stuff. There's a woman, Elizabeth Cousins, and what's the? Let me click on this name here, Elizabeth Cousins. Plummeting. So she, 1950, University of Puget Sound. Here's a quote from her. Plummeting measles vaccination rates should set off an alarm. Tens of millions of children are at risk of this deadly yet entirely preventable disease until we get global vaccination efforts back on track. There is no time to waste. We must work urgently to ensue life-saving vaccines for every last child. So she's a vaccine pusher. Where's another one? Trevor Mundell. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Trevor Mundell is the president of global health at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So the Rhodes Scholars seem to have their fingers all over this biowarfare thing.
It's sheep dipping for the British Empire, right? I mean, isn't that in Oxford, where that you get the sheep dipping? Not everybody. Bill Clinton and Strobe Talbot and various others, but it is kind of, isn't that the place where what's his face was from? Not Anthony Sutton. Anthony Sutton with. Anthony Sutton
was at the Hoover Institute. But again, I had always heard that William Fulbright, there was something weird about him and the Fulbright scholars. And you and I interviewed Shiva. Shiva's a Fulbright scholar. J. William Fulbright was a Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like an American Rhodes Scholarship, because Bill Clinton was a Fulbright scholar. Remember?
No, Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar.
But he also was a Fulbright scholar before he was a Rhodes Scholar.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
that's not about it. But Fulbright, I think Clinton clerked for Fulbright, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry?
I think he even clerked for Fulbright.
Okay.
In Washington. But the idea was that they would have a kind of an on-ramp for the Rhodes Scholarship. It was like if you won a Fulbright, then you were on the short list for sort of like if you won an Emmy or a Golden Globe, you're on the short list for an Oscar or whatever that foreign award film is, like a Sundance or one of those.
I also thought it was interesting that this is the logo or the trademark for the Pilgrim Society, and they have a lion and an eagle, which I think is interesting because the symbol for the Venetian party that the LaRouche group did such a good job of explaining the history of how they took over Great Britain, is basically a lion with eagle's wings. So is that what the empire is? Is the reason Great Britain is the lion and the United States is the eagle is because if you put the two of them together, you get a lion with eagle's wings, which is the symbol of Venice, but it's also, I think, it goes back to Babylon.
Oh, I didn't know that's what that was, the lion with the eagle's wings. I didn't know that. Now I understand when I see the lion with the eagle's wings, what you're symbolizing.
Yeah, here we go. I'll show you some of those things. So this is what I've been doing. This is the logo for the city of Venice the Serene Republic of Venice is a lion with eagle's wings. But I also think that this a line with the eagle's wings is a symbol that goes all the way back to Babylon. So just looking at the
It looks like a flying monkey a little bit, but I know it's an eagle. It's a lion, but yeah, it's scary.
Right. Yeah, and so somebody else is saying Narnia. Yeah, Narnia. Anyway, so George, I'm going to ask anybody if you got questions. You should ask them now because George is going to have to leave early today, and I just wanted to make sure that if you've got any questions that we can get to them. Oh, I see that maybe some of these are starred, except they look more like comments. Here's a question, Pippi B. Wasn't it Einstein that was a limited hangout, not Tesla? Else, why did Uncle John get called on to handle Tesla's lab? So I'm listening to the 9-part series. So you've got stories on both sides. I think that the LaRouche people are big Einstein fans, and then you've got other people on who are like Wolfgang Smith, who find all kinds of problems with Einstein. I'm still putting my judgment. I'm trying to not to go Leo Strauss and decide that he's a good guy or a bad guy. I think he's a scientist at Princeton at this point, and I've been going through the Matt Ehret's analysis of Tesla, where he talks about Einstein quite a bit.
Can I just say, Einstein won the Nobel Prize for the Bose-Einstein condensate.
Yep.
And Brownian motion, and neither one of those were his. Brownian motion is named after Brown.
Right.
And Bose-Einstein condensate was Bose. So the relativity, special relativity, and was never proven, and the theory, special theory of relativity and general theory are never proven.
Right.
So Einstein did not win his Nobel Prizes for that. You can look it up. But what they did use was his Q-level clearance before Q-level clearances existed, and he's the person who launched a lot of the early scientists that were the JSON group, which was the July, August, September, October, November group that was the brain drain from Europe that became the backbone of our DARPA, along with the paperclip Nazis and then later the Soviet Nazis when the Soviet Union fell. And this is how you make money. You bring over stuff from overseas, and then you have these princes, and then you say it's yours.
Right.
And that's where you make a lot of money at DARPA. And Elon Musk, I hate to say it, one of the primary beneficiaries. And
Yeah,
Jeff Bezos, another one.
I guess the short answer, Pippi, is go take a look at the Matt. It's 9 parts, but each part, first of all, Matt reads them all, which is pretty cool on Substack. But some of the parts are only 15 minutes long, so you probably can get through the whole 9 parts in like a couple of hours or something, and you could listen to it. Like, you could be, washing dishes or something while you're doing it. But he's got a completely different take on Tesla than anybody that you've ever heard. And the more of a limited hangout or a cardboard cutout that he presents Tesla as, the more that you have to wonder why Elon Musk would name a car company after a guy who's a cardboard cutout, right? Well, I guess if you take a cardboard cutout and you make a car company, your cars wind up looking like fridge magnets, right? Which is what the Cybertruck looks like. Anyway.
Yeah.
One more question. Pippi says, is the Hoover Institute a limited hangout? I would go check out the book Hidden History by Glenn Doherty, and I can't remember the other author's name in that book. And I did a 2-page. If you go to the Duke Report /TPU and find the Hidden History 2-page university PDF, you can read a short summary of that book in 500 words. But the thesis of that book that I think that is well founded and well proven in that book is that the Hoover Institute was designed as a way to bury all of the crimes against humanity that happened during World War I that were committed by the people who, A, started the war, and then B, kept it going longer than it needed to, and then C, wound up destroying Germany and creating a setup for World War II with the Versailles Treaty. So I would check Hidden History by Doherty. All right. Ira Frank said, what college did George go to, please? I believe, if I could answer for George, you went to Miami of Ohio.
Correct.
Yes. And you were a center and you were All-American?
I was academic All-American. I'm not good enough to be All-American.
Okay, all right, academic All-American.
Yeah, forget that. But academic All-American.
All right, okay. Dave Underdown says, don't leave out golf and the Mellons Pittsburgh is their home turf. I don't know what this means, but maybe George does.
Pittsburgh. He means Pittsburgh is where all these deep state operations occur. And going all the way back to Bessemer Steel, when they bought out Bessemer Steel, they said it was horrible until they could buy up all the interest. I can't remember if it was the Harrimans or whatnot, Rockefellers, but basically they badmouthed the Bessemer process until they controlled the Bessemer process. And then they said anything that isn't the Bessemer process is horrible. So that's the first false flag. Many false flags, Coronathrax, one after another,
Yeah, I was watching. Speaking of limited hangouts, I was watching Curtis Yarvin. He was being interviewed by Nina Power in Great Britain on YouTube yesterday, and I got about halfway through it, and I always think Curtis is pretty interesting. But boy, when he started telling this fairy tale about how coronavirus was created and how the scientific system, academic system, facilitated the creation of it, he goes way, way off into fairyland. Like I my respect for him went like this.
Military virus, right? It came out of Defense Threat Reduction Agency was the vaccines. Bobby Kennedy said it came out of a military thing. I just said the domain was the military program. And we talked about Michael Callahan. And then we went down to Alachua, Florida, and we went to all the companies, Resilience and so forth, and all the other spin-off companies, Nano Therapeutics and so forth. And so Bobby Kennedy now validated that this is a military virus and a military vaccine. But the only thing nobody wants to say is who fixed the bids, who rigged the bids. Well, but ASCB at WHO.INT. No one will say the email. No one will say the person who got all the bids. But we have now Bobby Kennedy saying military line of exercise. So we're halfway there if we get Trump elected and put Bobby Kennedy in as Attorney General to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, I'm there was this guy one day who told me that here it is. I found the Curtis Yarvin thing. Oh, except my audio doesn't work, and I can't show it. So I should get that working. There was this guy named George Webb who taught me this expression called a school play, and as I've done more and more research, the school play just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Right? The scope of it takes up more and more and more of what we perceive to be real, right? And so I'm not, I call me a cynic, call me a doubter, but in the event that Donald Trump gets elected, in the event that Bobby Kennedy Jr. becomes the special investigator or the attorney general or whatever it is in charge of getting to the bottom of all of this stuff, I still don't think it'll happen. I think somebody will die in a plane crash or a nuclear war. George, is there a debate tonight between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump?
Yeah, I'm going to be at a different event with these sheriffs because I want to get to the bottom of if sheriffs aren't in control of their own SWAT teams. So I'm going to be meeting with a whole bunch of sheriffs, and we're going to be live tweeting the debate. But it's no audience. No applause lines, controlled microphone, planted questions. The whole thing is Donald Trump is a criminal. You've been convicted, 98 times or whatever the counts that they took Michael, what's his face, and they took his one crime and made it 98 times for Trump. She's just going to say, I'm a prosecutor and you're a criminal. You shouldn't be running for president. She's not going to talk about the war.
Well, I have a prediction.
Go ahead.
My prediction is that they'll get nuked tonight by an Iranian suitcase nuke, because that solves a lot of problems.
Speaking of that, there's a rumor on Capitol Hill today. Joe Rogan says Kamala Harris is going to be president before the election. And Kash Patel, who's worked for Devin Nunes on the Hill in the Intelligence Committee, also says that Joe Biden's going to step down before the election. And so she'll be the first black woman president, and she'll be running as an incumbent. Now, that's not me saying that. That's Joe Rogan.
Sure.
And that's also Kash Patel.
Well, we'll see. But like I said, if it happens, you heard it here first. Iranian suitcase nuke just takes them both out. Continuity of government. World War III starts. We start nuking Iran. There it is.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's amazing how much one suitcase could answer.
That gives the Council on Foreign Relations everything they want. Right.
Okay, and it's in Philadelphia, I think, and I think George Slopadopoulos is the moderator. Yeah.
George Papadopoulos or George Stephanopoulos?
It's George Stephanopoulos, but Trump calls him Slopadopoulos.
Rhodes Scholar, George Stephanopoulos.
Correct, Rhodes Scholar.
Yes, Rhodes Scholar. All right, well, George, I'm going to let you go because you're on a tight leash today. So if people want to support George, they can go to either gweb.substack.com or they can go to georgewebb.substack.com. And if you want to support this show and Peter Duke, you can go to thedukereport.substack.com, or you can still go, if you want to buymeacoffee.com/thedukereport. There's still lots of people over there. I try to cross-post as much as I possibly can and make sure that I'm keeping everybody happy. Eventually, I would like the people who are on Buy Me a Coffee to move over to Substack, because Substack just has a lot more, like George says, I have so much more engagement, George. When I post a story on Substack, people are leaving comments. People are talking to each other in my threads. I get all kinds of comments. I take the same story I posted on Buy Me a Coffee. I get nothing. I put it on Substack. It gets restacked. People are sharing it. People are talking about it. All kinds of people are joining the channel. Like, Buy Me a Coffee is like, being stuck out in the middle of the Mojave or something.
It's almost like Buy Me an Ice Cream Cone. I love Buy Me a Coffee. Please buy me a coffee. I like my spaces, but it is sort of like Buy Me an Ice Cream Cone. It's not for writers and creators. It's not for readers. It's more for like somebody mowed your lawn, a kid next door, and you want to buy him an ice cream cone.
Right.
But he's old enough to drink coffee. But what I wanted to say though, if Russia, if you're out there listening, I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
I'm not going to do anything you want me to do, but if you want to give me $400,000 a month,
sure, I'm available too. I'll sign the FARA. I'll sign the FARA right now, because you know what? If you read my content, I might as well be paid by Russia.
Yeah. I mean, we're open. We're open to $40,000 a month. We're open to $4,000 a month.
I'm waiting for my friend Mike Waller to disown me.
And I do want to say this, Peter, and you know Luke as well. Luke Rudkowski. Rudkowski is a great journalist, and he is a backpack journalist. I have great respect for him, and I know he's on Tim Pool's show, and I know he has nothing whatsoever to do with the Russia.
And we know that he knows that the stuff that Tim Pool is saying is, at best, ill-informed.
Right. Doesn't know who Kolomoisky is in Ukraine, etc. So. Right. But nothing I've ever said about Tim Pool I meant about Luke Rudkowski. I still have the highest level of respect.
Look, I like all of them. Look, we all know how people get moused. They get miced. And my next Substack that I'm trying to, I've got it half written. I'm trying to get it done by the end of the day, is an open letter to Lauren Southern, Benny Johnson, and Tim Pool about Russia, about why everybody wants to bag on Russia right now. This tenant media thing, it's got $10 million attached to it, but it isn't any more effective than the $167 worth of Facebook ads that Russia ran in the last election, or whatever number it was. You know, it's like this was such a half-cocked, amateur, ineffective use of $10 million. It's like, how do I get that money? It's like,
exactly. That's all I kept thinking. And Peter, I think we do better. I think we have a better show for four.
We have a better show
and I think that's you and me both for $400 a month. And so if anybody wants,
well, I'd like more than $400 a month.
Well, I would too. I mean, I would too. But I'm just saying, I think we do better. At least
I'd like to be able to make enough to move into a 2-bedroom apartment.
We're both in competition. Steve could have a smaller place to live. You know, like we're starting to get into health codes. You know, well, sorry, sir, you cannot live in a space that small. But you know, there is, you know, or what you have to live the life. You know, if you're going to have a vow of poverty, you got to live the life. But we wouldn't mind if Russia wanted to give us $4,000 a month or $40,000.
Right, buy my building. That's it. I'm telling Vladimir Putin, buy my building and turn it into a Russian retreat.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what, George? Just let us, just move us to the Russian retreat. We know where it is.
No. I want them to buy your building because I want to look out over the Pacific Ocean, or at least be able to walk down the Pacific Ocean.
You don't like Chesapeake Bay that much?
It's cold in the winter. I mean, it's nice in the summer.
Yeah.
But it's cold in the winter. But yeah,
there are less bugs here.
If you're really serious, Vladimir Putin, about influencing the U.S. elections, you'll buy Peter's house and give him free rent.
Buy this building and turn it into a Russian enclave. We have the Germans. We have Thomas Mann House and the Via Aurora. Why isn't there a Russian? There's enough people speaking Russian in my neighborhood now, though. Although I think that they're all Ukrainians.
Like when I was in Butler, everyone around me, 6 guys, all speaking Ukrainian, and they're all there for a shooting competition, and it's the Can-Am Games, the Canadian-American Games, 2 NATO countries. What are all these Ukrainians doing here with weapons? You know, it's like, why are all these Ukrainians here with sniper weapons? Huh? And Trump.
They're from Kiev. They're from Kiev, British Columbia.
Yeah, they're all talking outside of my door every day, every morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. They're all talking in Russian or Ukrainian outside my door.
Right.
That gives you an unsettling feeling right after Trump shot. You know. But anyway, I digress. We probably close up the show.
All right. With that, I will see you next Tuesday, George. And look for my my open letter to Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and Lauren Southern as my next post on Substack. And with that, I will say thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
I'll forward it. Thanks, Peter. Bye-bye.